When we're working about integers, we already understand, or if you can see the other videos I talk about integers, we understand what means the addition of integers and what happens or what are the general rules we have when you add integers. Now in this video we're going to see, using the addition of integers, how to multiply integers. Let's go. Okay, and we're going to start thinking of what is the addition of integers. We're going to remember the addition of integers and the subtraction of integers. Remember that if you are going to add the integer, 3 plus 2, what we're going to do is just to put the number 3 and then we're going to put right next the number 2, right? To have the addition of integers. And if the integer is negative, we're going to put just the integer, let's say negative 2, and right next the other integer, let's say negative 2. Okay? Now, bearing in mind this idea, what will be the multiplication of two integers? Let's say that we're going to explore the multiplication of 5 times 2. Okay? So if you remember, the definition of multiplication of integers is just that you add repeatedly the number. So it means that I'm going to take 5 and add it twice, or I'm going to take 2 and add it 5 times. This is the main idea of adding two integers. So for example, if I'm going to represent 5 times 2 in the number line, I'm just going to take, for example, 5, 1, and then right next to this 5, I'm going to represent the other 5, 2. Or I'm going to take 2 5 times, right? 2 5 times. Now, bearing in mind this concept, what we're going to think, or what I ask you to think, is what happens if I'm going to operate 5 times negative 2. What it would mean 5 times negative 2. Take some time to think what it means 5 times negative 2. If a multiplication is a repeating addition, what will it mean that I'm going to do 5 times negative 2? You think about it, right? Now, 5 times negative 2, it will be understood as I'm going to add negative 2 5 times. So what I'm going to do now is to add negative 2 5 times. This is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to add negative 2 5 times. So I'm going to take this negative 2 here, another negative 2 because I'm adding negative 2 5 times, 3, 4, and 5. So as you can see, negative 5 times negative 2 is just negative 10. Okay? So here we can see our first rule of multiplying integers, right? Because I just can observe that I just need to multiply 5 times 2, that is going to be 10, and this negative number or this negative sign could be multiplied by this positive sign that represents 5. So we can get that the first rule to multiply integers is that if I multiply a positive integer times a negative integer, this is gonna give me negative. Okay? Now, we already see that 5 times negative 2 could be interpreted as I'm going to take negative 2 and add it 5 times. But what happens if I'm going to do the other way? Let's say that I'm going to do minus 5 times 2. What will it represent if the first member is the member that I'm going to tell in terms of addition or repeating addition, and the other term is the one that I'm going to add many times? What do you think it will mean? I want you take some time to think. What will mean if 5, when I say 5 times 2 means that I'm going to do a repeated addition of 5 many times, what will mean negative 5 times 2? What will be the negative? You think about it? Now, negative 5 times 2, I can interpret it as that I'm going to subtract, because it says -5, I'm going to do the opposite of adding repeatedly, and the opposite of adding repeatedly is subtraction, right? So what I need to do is to subtract 2 many times. How many times? 5. So I'm going to subtract 2 5 times. So subtract, 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 subtract many times. And obviously this is gonna give me -10 as well. So as you can see, here we can get the second rule. Negative times positive is going to be negative. Okay? Now you can see that what I talk when I say that this is the multiplication, 5 times -2, we're just talking about, or we're just asking about -2. We're just talking about -2 added 5 times. You see, this is what I just showed you. And in the case of -5 times 2, as negative is the opposite of adding, and I'm adding many times, so I'm going to do the opposite of adding, that is subtracting 2 many times. So you can see that the answer is going to be the same, right? Because adding the negative is the same as subtracting the positive, as we see in another video of integers. And this leads us to the last question. And the last question is, what happens if I'm going to do -5 times -2? What I'm going to do if I take -5 times -2? What I'm going to do, I want that you think again what I'm going to do if I multiply -5 times -2. What is expected to me to do? If I know that 5 times 2 is adding 5 times -2, -5 times 2 is the opposite of adding, so it means subtracting 5 times 2, and finally -5 times 2, -2, what it means. You think about it? Now, simple. So if this is -5, means that I have to subtract repeatedly 5 times -2. So I have to subtract -2, minus -2, minus -2, minus -2, and minus -2, 5 times. But what happened here? Subtracting the negative is the same as adding the positive. Subtracting the negative, adding the positive. And what I got is +10. So it means that negative times negative becomes positive. Now, as you can see, we can understand the rules of multiplication of integers by using the definition of multiplication, that is the repeating addition. So if you use the repeating addition, you can find out the rules of multiplying integers. Positive times negative is negative, negative times positive is negative, and negative times negative is going to be positive. And this is how you can see how there's a difference between multiplying and adding, because remember that if you add 2 negative integers, it's going to be negative. But if you multiply 2 negative integers, there's going to be positive. And that's it. This is how we can finish today. I hope that this video helps you to understand about multiplication of integers, and in the next time we're going to talk about what happened with division of integers. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Share, like, and do what you already know. Bye bye.